international community, asking every foreign government, every association, business, and even individuals, if you can send us a drone, if it can fly, we'll take it. If you don't have a drone, send us the money and we'll buy it ourselves. I even got the chance to speak with one Ukrainian drone operator who was in Kyiv just back from the front lines. He underscored just how critically important and strategically useful these drones were.
When the project Army of Drones started, they started to collect all drones what civilian people have in their houses and in their apartments, and they start buying a lot of drones from other countries because they have a lot of donations, and they collected a lot of a really big army of drones. And now some drone and we need something, we just call, and next day they send us all of we want. You know, it's great project.
What are you able to do with this, you know, this huge complement of drones that you wouldn't be able to do without them? You know, how has it really shaped Ukraine's defenses?
Russian troops can be 2 kilometers in front of us, or 3 kilometers. We start reconnaissance, we find, and we start to use military drones with a bomb, and we start hit them as far as we can. They save a lot of lives of our soldiers because Russians, they use a lot of artillery, you know, and when they start use artillery and in the sky, we can find their artillery and we can send this information to Ukraine.
Just days after we spoke, the Ukrainian armed forces mounted a surprise counteroffensive to the east of Kharkiv, recapturing over the course of several days and weeks thousands of kilometers of their territory, liberating dozens of towns. One thing our drone operator told me was that it will be critical for Ukraine to keep up these shipments of drones if it's going to continue forcing these counteroffensives. We actually got access to one delivery of Chinese-made surveillance drones earlier this month. These drones have been instrumental in giving Ukraine the advantage, the intelligence, the surveillance, and the capacity to take back that territory. But I wanted to get a sense of what the long-term impact of this drone warfare would be. So I called up Paul Lyshenko. He's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, and he's a PhD candidate at Cornell University. He's also written the book about drone warfare.
So at the tactical level of war, drones, especially these easily weaponized, commercially available drones, have provided Ukraine the ability to exact surprise against Russian forces, which has allowed them to disrupt sort of Russian forces, operational tempo, maneuver, and formation, and to destroy these forces at a scale probably would not have been achieved had drones not been integrated in the conflict.
Many of those drones that Ukraine is deploying are commercial drones. I mean, some of them were literally donated by regular folks in North America and Europe, drones you could have went and bought at any electronics store.
Ukraine has had to do this to gain parity with a larger scale military that by all accounts should have marched onto Kyiv and installed a new regime. And by way of that, they have done things that have just kind of put Russia in kind of on the back foot.
In recent weeks, Russia has got back on the front foot, trying to beat Ukraine at their own game. Thanks to a number of Iranian-made kamikaze drones, Russia has been bombarding Ukrainian cities, particularly the capital of Kyiv, basically with these flying bombs. The drone pilot I spoke to said it would be critical for these drones to continue arriving in Ukraine if they're hoping to keep up this pressure. But he also underscored just how important it was for Ukraine to use these drones to show the rest of the world the realities of this war.
When you show it from the drone, they start, wow, it's really working good. We must donate and buy more, and they can crash more Russian base. I have some record from my military position when we dropped the bomb on 2 Russian snipers, and security service sent me the voice message. They catch a voice message from a Russian soldier to his military leadership, and he says, we are scared.
У нас 2 300-х. У нас осталось 10 человек. Мы сейчас просто развернемся нахуй и пойдем отсюда. Дротики летают. Высоко-высоко не видно. И кидают всякие штучки.
I think mentally it's changed some mind of Ukrainian people and Russian, because Russians scare drones.
Justin, to use drones like this on this scale is fascinating. I'm wondering how new it is, though.
I mean, in some ways, it's incredibly high-tech, it's incredibly futuristic. But in many ways, this sort of technology, used in this way is quite old. You go back to the U.S. Civil War, unmanned weather balloons were used to scout enemy positions by the Union Army. You go to World War I and II, the use of fighters and fighter jets totally revolutionized those conflicts. The Cold War largely stayed cold because we had these very kind of sophisticated spy planes that were able to kind of map Soviet installations. And even just recently, some of these same drones that are being used in Ukraine were used in the Armenian and Azerbaijan conflict.
So, we all saw that Russia deployed drones to wreak havoc on Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. Does that mean, though, that Ukraine is losing its advantage there?
Not necessarily. I mean, these Iranian-made drones are doing a lot of damage. But Russia has a supply problem. It is really only getting surveillance drones from China and these suicide drones from Iran. Eventually, that source is going to run dry. And Ukraine, according to officials I've spoken with, is already in the process of purchasing anti-drone technology that will help it defend against the...
In Donbass, there will be no harvest. As Russian shells fall about us, these fields and furrows are instead ploughed by gun tracks and fighting men. Ukraine's National Guard leads us through the barrage. They pause only briefly and by the cover of tree lines. This is a war of artillery, of seemingly limitless firepower, and of scorched earth. The destruction is measured in the square kilometres. With phosphorus and cluster bombs, Russia burns and scores what it seeks to capture. A canopy of acacias gives some protection from drones, but from here onwards they must go on foot. When Russia advanced in July, they fell back to these bunkers. Here they are defending, for now.
Look at the field to your left. They could be coming out of the woods to the firing position.
How confident are you that you can hold this line, stop the Russians breaking through?
100%. We will hold it. There cannot be any other option. It's our land. We will fight for every piece of it. Our flag will be in every city on the borderlines which were established in 1991. They will not have the power to change this.
The breakthrough in Kherson has buoyed spirits, even as Russia's dominance in Donbass rings out loudly. But this war isn't only being fought at long distance.
Kyiv, there's a landmine here. Careful. Careful.
The threat here isn't just the artillery you can hear, it's also these landmines all along this pathway. That's why I'm following very closely in the footsteps of the men ahead. There's another one. They edge closer to Russian positions. This is zero line, the front of the front line. Here they are eyeball to eyeball with the Russian enemy. So these are the same men that fought the Russians in Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. Big difference this time, they say, is manpower. Back then, they were outnumbered about 1 to 7. Now, it's 1 to 3. And as defenders, they like those odds. Russians? They're literally at the other side of the river. The farthest point, the very edge of this conflict. It's a lonely and deadly outpost. And there are more threats. Some locals are ambivalent, others hostile to Ukrainian forces. but not Sergei. Where is your wife? And is it hard being apart?
Yes. Every hour, every moment I miss her. It's difficult without her because I love her and she loves me. What a life. But I think we will get through it all. Everything will be for the better. It's in our nature as Ukrainians to succeed, no matter what. I'm not a nationalist, but I believe in Ukraine and our armed forces.
Despite the shelling, Yeva and her mother appear numb to danger. We can hear the shelling all around us.
I am afraid. I have a small selection of medical supplies which could be helpful. If suddenly, God forbid, something happens to my child or to anybody at all, I will give them first aid and take them somewhere for further treatment. But at the moment, as long as I have strength, I want to stay at home.
So for now, Yulia and Yeva will hang on here amid the illusion of a normal life. In villages and towns for hundreds of kilometres, there's no school, no work, no life. A country frozen in time and in conflict. Few live this war as fast and as close to danger as Ruslan and his team of army medics. The cost of hesitation lies all too apparent by the roadside. Speed is a matter of life and death for them and for their patients. Their ambulance can't afford to wait until the shelling stops. Unlike those around them, the vehicle isn't armoured. Fresh obstacles from Russian shelling appear in their path daily.
Russians came and destroyed our roads. They destroyed our industry. They left us with nowhere to work.
But there are times when even Ruslan and his medics have to take cover.
Over there you can see smoke. Their mortar is working.
Ruslan, we can see Russian incoming mortar fire here. What do you do when you have casualties out there and this kind of firepower is coming in? What decisions do you have to make?
We see the enemy, and the enemy sees us, but the enemy hides in the tree line there, disguising himself. We can't do that. Our ambulance is exposed. We have to pick up the injured and take them out.
Russia's viciousness is the daily burden of Ukrainian combat medics. This man curses in agony. Only moments earlier he was wounded by a mine. They're still not sure of his injuries. But in this field hospital they have an intimate knowledge of the damage that shrapnel and artillery do to the human body. They are covered in blast wounds, their limbs broken. His colleague too has been hit. Time is critical here for two reasons: the patient's life, and the medics never know when more casualties will arrive. This is only a snapshot of the cost of this war. Without a decisive breakthrough, Ukraine's stalemate of suffering will endure. Quentin Somerville, BBC News, Donbass.
To a sponsor who offered her a room in his home in South London.
Hi, how are you doing?
But 7 months later, she decided to go back with her sister to check in on friends and family and find out what had happened to her city since she left.
It is very surreal and strange because the city on the one hand lives and fights and its heart beats because there are some shops and some restaurants, the transport is running, so the city is breathing. But on the other hand, the city is big and usually a lot of people live here. Now, of course, it's not that crowded, and to see this huge megapolis so empty is really strange.
Kyiv is just 20 miles from the Russian border, and although Ukrainian forces have liberated almost the entire province, the city is deeply scarred by bomb damage.
For every Kharkiv citizen, those places are parts of their lives. So when you see it, you think of your own life and your own past, like, oh, I met my school friend here, oh, I had a nice cup of coffee here, I had a lovely date here, and now it's just all ruins and it smells of death and destruction and fear.
Missile and drone attacks are now a part of life, yet those who've remained in the city somehow carry on. Electricity supplies are now extremely limited, with rolling blackouts and power cuts. At night, the city is plunged into complete darkness and winter is coming. But Svetlana is looking forward to the time when she can move back home for good.
I'm so worried about people who are still here, my close ones, but I think they're really made of steel, because I would be so scared every minute. I hope that they don't have so much stress, and I'm really looking forward to our victory. To go back home as well. I miss this place, I love it so much.
2. Hold their positions. The Russians also claim that the Ukrainian army lost part of the territory in the Kazemivka area and retreated to Berestov. Ukraine does not comment on these statements, and does not confirm them. In today's summary of the General Staff of Ukraine, it is said that the Russians attacked the Andriivka settlement, which was repulsed. By the way, on the map Andriivka is displayed as Rozovka. Apparently the settlement was renamed and this map is outdated. In the Lyman direction, according to Russian Telegram channels, the Ukrainian army is striving to reach the Krasnoarkhansk, Makiivka, Pishchain crossroads. At the same time, according to their own statements, the threat of a breakthrough of the armed forces of Ukraine into Chervenopivka is great. That is, apparently, it will be hot here in the coming days. Ukrainian troops will try to break through the front. The Ukrainian General Staff reported in the morning that the armed forces of Ukraine repelled a number of Russian attacks on the Kramatorsk direction in the area of the settlement of Bilohorivka, Luhansk region. In Bilohorivka, a difficult situation has developed for the Ukrainian army, Governor Gaidai said. The last 10 days